Today, we're digging into one of the greatest aviation mysteries of the entire Cold War, the disappearance of Flying Tiger Flight 739. We're talking about a massive military transport plane, jam-packed with over 100 souls on a secret mission that it simply vanished from the face of the Earth back in 1962. So, just try to picture this for a second. A fully loaded Lockheed Super Constellation is flying on a secret mission over the vast, empty Pacific. One minute, it's on the radar, everything's normal, and the next, it's just gone. No mayday call, no final words, no debris, not a single trace. Just a chilling silence that has now lasted for more than 60 years. All right, so let's start at the beginning. The story kicks off on March 14th, 1962. The plane, which was under the command of 48-year-old Captain Gregory P. Thomas, had been chartered by the U.S. military. Its mission? A covert one, of course, flying soldiers and supplies from California all the way to South Vietnam. But right from the get-go, this was not going to be a smooth flight. As you can see from this timeline, the journey across the Pacific was this multi-day ordeal that was plagued by these really persistent mechanical problems. I mean, on the very first leg to Hawaii, engines 1 and 3 started having ignition issues. Mechanics got to work on them, but then, on the next hop to Wake Island, the same problem popped right back up. By the time they landed in Guam, the issue seemed to have sorted itself out, but this mechanical ghost, it was going to hang over the flight's final hours. And here is a little detail that investigators would later zero in on. During that stopover in Guam, while passengers and crew were inside stretching their legs, the fully refueled plane sat all by itself on the tarmac for about 15 minutes. Now you're going to want to remember this point. It becomes absolutely crucial when we start exploring the theory of sabotage. So the plane is refueled, and the crew seems confident that the engine troubles are finally behind them. Flight 739 takes off from Guam and heads out into the night. Its destination, the Philippines. This leg of the journey, though, over that dark, empty expanse of the Pacific, it would be its last. Let's just take a look at the final setup here. On board, you've got 107 people, most of them highly trained American soldiers. The plane had way more than enough fuel for the 6-hour flight, and the weather, nothing to write home about. Pretty unremarkable. But then, there's this strange detail. Captain Thomas makes a request to have their departure status relayed to company officers in California, Manila, and Hong Kong. That's something he hadn't asked for on any of the previous legs of the trip. So you have to wonder, why the sudden change in protocol? At 14:22 GMT, Captain Thomas makes a completely routine position report. He states they're about 280 nautical miles west of Guam, they have over 8 hours of fuel left, and they expect to land at Clark Air Force Base right on schedule. There was absolutely no indication of any trouble whatsoever. Everything was perfectly normal. And then, just silence. The next scheduled check-in, the one that was supposed to happen at 15:30 GMT, was met with nothing. The routine flight had officially become a mystery. Now, to make matters even worse, the radio operators back in Guam were fighting through some really heavy static, which meant they couldn't even try to contact the plane until it was already 9 minutes overdue. And when they finally got a clear signal and called out to Flight 739, there was just no answer. Right away, a massive search and rescue operation was launched, scouring this huge expanse of the Pacific. For days, they found nothing. It was like the plane had just been swallowed whole by the sea. But then, a single, dramatic clue emerged from the darkness. This is the absolutely stunning account from a night watchman who was aboard a supertanker, the SS Lensen, which happened to be sailing right in that area. Around the exact time the plane would have been overhead, he saw a bright flash in the sky. He described seeing a vapor trail followed by 2 fiery objects just plummeting into the ocean. The ship's radar even tracked them about 17 miles away. So the crew of the Lensen immediately changes course, and they race to the location of the impact. They search that area for over 5 hours. But here's the central problem of this whole case. Despite being at the scene of what everyone assumed was an explosion almost immediately, they found absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no sign of the 107 people who were on board. So, with zero physical evidence to go on, investigators were left with just that one eyewitness account and a handful of really troubling facts. They basically had to focus their efforts on 4 main possibilities. The whole investigation boiled down to this one question. What on earth could cause a modern aircraft to explode so completely that it literally leaves no trace? Was this a deliberate act of destruction, a tragic freak accident, an attack by an enemy, or was it something even stranger? Okay, let's break these four main theories down. First up, sabotage. The persistent ignition problems and those 15 minutes the plane was left alone in Guam, that's definitely suspicious. But the argument against it is pretty strong. Planting a bomb on a secure U.S. military base would be incredibly difficult. Okay, theory two, a tragic accident. That vapor trail the witness saw could suggest a fuel leak that was ignited by lightning, which has happened to similar planes. The only problem? The eyewitnesses on the tanker were totally adamant there was no lightning that night, period. Third, hostile action. I mean, given the Cold War tensions and the secret nature of the mission to Vietnam, an enemy attack was a real possibility. But a missile would have left a huge debris field, and nothing was ever found. And finally, you have the idea of a cover-up. The mission was secret, and the files are still classified. But if the whole point was secrecy, why fake a public disappearance? And what happened to the 107 people? So, in the end, after weighing all of these possibilities, the official investigation came to a frustrating and deeply unsatisfying conclusion. The Civil Aeronautics Board concluded that yes, Flight 739 likely disintegrated in a midair explosion. But as for why, they couldn't say. With no wreckage, there was no proof. And maybe most tellingly of all, the official records of the entire investigation remain classified, locked away from public view even now.
There is one final haunting little detail. Days later, a passing ship spotted a single, lone mattress just floating in the ocean, pretty far from the main search area. Was this from Flight 739? They had brought mattresses aboard for the crew to rest on. It's such a mundane object, but it serves as this heartbreakingly lonely potential marker for 107 lost lives.
And really, that's where the story just stops. Not with a conclusion, but with a question that still just hangs in the air. The families of those 107 passengers and crew members have waited decades for an explanation. And with the official files still sealed tight, you really have to wonder, will the truth of what happened in those skies over the Pacific ever be known?